Hey, good morning, afternoon, whenever you guys are watching this. It's Monday, and today we're starting off our unit on fractions, which can be a little bit scary for some people sometimes, but I'm going to do my best to make it easier on you guys. Let's jump right into it. The first thing we're going to start with here is simplifying fractions. For example, a really common fraction we like to use a lot is the fraction 1/2, right? The reason we use this a lot is because it's pretty easy to understand. For example, you could have, I don't know, half of something, and it's just easier to understand. For example, if you were to share something with somebody, I don't know, like my banana, right? And if I were to say you can have half of this banana, it's a little easy to understand because if you cut it right down the middle and both sides are the same, that would be half, right? So, for example, I don't know, you cut a banana in half. Then you get two parts that are equal with each other, right? That's what a half is. I just freaking cut it. Dude, scissors are good for cutting bananas, apparently. Anyway, I'll eat that in a minute and clean those scissors too. But a half is pretty easy to understand. But another fraction that might come up quite often, very similar to it, is a fraction like 2/4. Now, 2/4 is the same, or not the same as a half, but it's equivalent to, right? Because 2/2 makes a whole, but so does, here, let's do it again. Dude, this is cool. You can just cut a banana with a pair of scissors, if you guys didn't know this. So now we have a banana that's cut into 4 pieces. But as you can see here, 2 of these fourths make up what we just saw earlier, which was a half, right? So 2/4 is the same as a half, just cut a little differently. Now that we've got that out of the way, fractions can be equivalent to each other. But if I were to ask you which of these fractions was easier or simpler, we would say it's this one over here. It's more simple because the numbers are smaller. They're a little bit easier to understand. Now, there's another fraction. We could say 100/200 is also equivalent to that, right? It's also equivalent to a half, but it's not as simple as just saying 1/2 or 1/2. So that's what we mean by simplifying fractions. So let's go ahead and try one together real quick. Let's take a fraction and then try and simplify it down. For example, if we get the fraction 4/16. The fraction 4/16. Now this is a pretty small partial number, right? It's definitely not a whole number, definitely not all of something. It would be like a part of a banana. How big that part would be, we can figure out if we simplify this a little bit. And in order to simplify fractions, all you do is find a number that will divide into both of those, right? So you think to yourself, what could I divide 4 or 16 evenly by? That's got to be the same number. I always start with 2. If they're even numbers, I always choose 2 because it's a little bit easier. So what I would do here is I would divide this by 2 and divide this by 2. Because I know 4 and 16 will both divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And 16 divided by 2 is 8. So that gets me a simpler fraction. 2/8 and 4/16 are the same amount, but 2/8 is simpler. Unfortunately, we're not quite done with this one because 2/8 could even be made simpler. I could divide these by 2 again to make this even simpler. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So it turns out that 4/16 and 1/4 are the same amount, but this is much simpler. 1/4, again, which we did earlier, is just this big, right? 1/4 is this big. But when we're thinking about 4/16, it's not as easy to understand. So this is why simplifying fractions is so important. Now, obviously, this could have been done a little bit simpler if you did 4/16 and you divided each of these by 4. If you already knew that 4 would have gone into both of them, that would have taken you straight down to 1/4, and it would have been a little bit quicker. But that's how we simplify fractions. Mostly review right there. Let's get into what we're doing today, and that is multiplying fractions times whole numbers. 6, let's get rid of that. Let's just make these parentheses. We're doing 6 times 2/3. And when you multiply a whole number times a fraction, it will actually make that number smaller because a fraction isn't even a whole number. So, in order to multiply a whole number times a fraction, all you have to do is one simple step, and it makes it pretty easy. Take the whole number, put a 1 underneath it, then multiply the numerators, which are the top numbers, and the denominators, which are the bottom numbers. And then you're almost done. That's pretty much it. Really, all you got to do is remember to put a 1 underneath the whole number, and that makes it into a fraction without changing it. So if we multiply then across our numerators, 6 times 2, we get 12. And then we multiply our denominators together, 1 times 3 is 3. Now, in order to finish simplifying this, because this isn't in simplest form, what conventional wisdom would be to divide these by something they would both divide by. In this case, 3 will go into both of them evenly, which will give us 4 over 1. And hopefully we know that 4 over 1 is just 4 wholes, or since all fractions are division problems, 4 divided by 1 is just 4. And in that way we would say that 2/3 of 6 is 4. Let's try another one. Once you try it, guys, pause the video and try this one on your own. Dude, these stupid X's. I'm trying to get rid of them, guys, I promise. They won't be in your assignment. Multiply these together for me real quick, see what you get, and then compare your answer to mine. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and multiply these. 4 is a whole number. I'm going to throw a 1 underneath there. And I'm just going to multiply my numerators together and my denominators together. 4 times 1 is 4. 1 times 8 is 8. I get 4/8. Now I know 4/8 is a fraction. Can it be simplified? Yes, it can. You could start dividing these by 2 and keep dividing, but I know that 4 goes into both of them. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. The answer to this one is a half. 4 is half of 8, so it comes down to a half in simplest form. Let's try this one together real quick. 2/5 times 4. And hopefully you solved it and you're coming back to me now. Slap a 1 underneath that whole number. Multiply across. 2 times 4 is 8. 5 times 1 is 5. We get 8 over 5. Now this one's a little bit interesting because we're going to end up with a mixed number answer. And if you have a number on top that's bigger than the number on the bottom, we call this an improper fraction. And in order to handle an improper fraction, all you have to do is divide it. Literally do 8 divided by 5 because that's what fractions are anyway. It's just division problems. So 8 divided by 5, do this really quickly here. 8 divided by 5. I know that 5 goes into 8 one time. Subtract with 3 left over. And this may seem a little weird, but in order to write our answers as a fraction, if this were a decimal, we would just add a decimal and keep dividing, which you could do. But we're going to keep it as a fraction. And we'll just take whatever this remainder is down here. That'll be our numerator, and our divisor is our denominator. So we'll just say 1 3/5 is our answer. 1 3/5. And that's how we handle improper fractions. Let's do one more together, and then I'll give you guys the assignment. A cat spends 2/3 of its life asleep. If a cat lives to be 15 years old, how many years did it spend asleep? Well, in order to find what 2/3 of 15 is, we multiply those numbers together. Keyword of. Let me see that. Of right there. 2/3 of its life. So we multiply 2/3 times 15, and it should give us something reasonable. Right? If you really think about this, how much of a cat's life will it spend asleep if it's 15 years old? A lot of it, right? 2/3 is almost one whole. So it's going to be a lot of its life. Will it be more than 15? Absolutely not, but would it make sense? So we're going to multiply these together. 2/3 times 15. And in order to multiply a fraction of the whole number, we put 1 underneath there, and then multiply across. 2 times 15 is 30. 3 times 1 is 3. And then we get 30 over 3. Now we could simplify these, or we could just simply divide because it is an improper fraction again, where the numerator is bigger than the denominator. Let's just go ahead and divide 30 divided by 3. Some of you might know that answer already. 3 goes into 3 once. 0, bring down a 0. 3 goes into 0, 0 times it's 10. So a cat spends 10 years of its life asleep. Hopefully this is a good refresher for you guys. We got a couple problems for your assignment. Get them done. Please ask me if you got questions or rewatch this video. This will give you a ton of good information. I'll see you guys in class.